Then we'll go live.
4 minutes? All right, I'll give you enough time to get a drink.
Yeah, you go do that, pal.
Thanks.
All right, guys, welcome to Hoggin Out. We'll be ready here in 5 minutes. Going to play one song. Finally fixed a tech issue. I'm pretty good at this stuff, but I couldn't figure it out. But I did. I figured it out. We're good to go. All right, yeah. We'll be ready in 4 minutes, guys. Play one song.
The unfortunate part there is this is the skull face actually back face the skull face kind of really nice. And but the bad part is, man, is this neurological shit. Oh!
Yeah, Jeff has a hot mic, so do I. Sorry. Live here in a couple minutes, guys. Couple minutes. Get those questions ready for the Q&A segment. What is going on, everyone? Oh, yeah. What's going on, everybody? What is going on? Joe from Hoggin Out. I hope you guys are having a great night. Tonight we have Jeff of the Galewoods, I'd like to call him. Jeff Galewood Jr. from JMG Reptile. How's everybody doing tonight? Who do we have in the room? We have some people in the room. We have Brandon. How you doing? Paragon Reptile. What's going on? Holly B. What's going on, Holly B? Ethan. Louisville. Herps. How you doing? Ethan. Good dude. We have some conversations in Discord. Jeff, how are you? Can you hear me?
Doing all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see you. How are you, my friend?
Oh, you can.
Yeah, you got your head on backwards, blue and blue. with some nice
Yeah,
artwork in the background. I love the artwork.
That's Avery. That's
Avery's artwork, right? Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, we got all of them. We got, well, not all of them. There's 4, but we got 3 pieces.
Nice. Audio good, guys? You can hear me and Jeff? Everybody doing good? All right, awesome. Everybody can hear us. Great. Yeah, guys, we had a little technical difficulties. Starting, I usually don't have this problem, but apparently I got to switch my headphones from chat to gaming. Apparently, chat doesn't work, the chat, but you got to switch it to gaming on my computer. So, yeah, it happens. Jeff, what do you got going on this year? Anything special you produced this year? Anything like that?
I got a lot of. I got some pretty cool. I hit those toxic Swiss chocolate. So.
Oh yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, triple recessive Swiss chocolate combo to be made. Jules was the first one to triple recessive, which was a snow Swiss. So I got toxic Swiss. I made some skull face combos this year that were actually some pretty unique and nice stuff. The only other person making skull face stuff and then not telling people they're neurological. It's Philippe's he's made super Arctic condos. I'm the only other person that's made them, so there's only 2 of us. And other cool skull face combos. Some pretty nice LGs. Animals. I hit some super Arctic Swiss chocolate, super Arctic Conda Swiss.
Wow.
I don't know if I hit any other new stuff. I think I did. I mean, I got some like Arctic caramel condas, which aren't new, but it's like not one that's like widely being produced. So
gotcha. How about that one from Wes Moser, man? He posted on Instagram.
That's a 1 in, the 1 in 128 odds.
Woo!
That's pretty funny.
I was just
yeah.
Good.
Well, he bred a Conda, I guess, triple het to a Conda triple het. So yeah, because if you do triple het to triple het, it's a 1 in 64, and then Conda would duplicate that, so it's a 1 in 128.
Yeah.
So he didn't say the pairing, but it would have to be a Conda triple het to a normal triple het for those to be a 1 in 128, and he hit it. So that's pretty interesting. Actually, somebody hit a super Conda version over in China, and I just seen a picture of it today. That looks really hot as well.
Yeah, I was talking to Wes a couple days ago, and I was like, dude, what a beautiful baby, dude. He's like, yeah, dude, he goes 1 in 128. I'm like, holy crap, dude. I was like, that's just absolutely amazing. It's beautiful looking, too. It's really cool. I can't wait to see what it looks like after a few sheds.
It looks very nice.
Yeah, after a few sheds, that thing's going to be popping. But what I want to talk to you tonight is about polygenics. I researched a little bit over the last year or two, but what is polygenics? What does it do to a hognose, or what can we produce from it in the future? Let's talk about colors, patterns. Now, you said skull face. What is this? Is a skull face that's polygenic too as well, right?
No, it's not.
It's not? Okay.
Like certain stuff, I mean, it's certain stuff, like, you could kind of look at it and kind of have a pretty good idea if it's polygenic or if it's, like, incomplete dominant or, dominant or, sorry, at least incomplete dominant. Like, I see something like skull face, and I seen the results, and I was like, that's incomplete dominant, my best guess. I'd say I bet my life on it that it was at least a mutation that had a dominant inheritance. So I was like, it's either dominant or it's incomplete dominant. And I would say it's most likely incomplete, meaning that the homozygous form is a lot more extreme than the single copy form, the heterozygous form. So there's yet to be a skull face to skull face breeding, even though there's been more than enough time. My initial thought before it was even done, when I had skull face, I seen somebody had some slight neuro issues. I was like, I bet the super form, because the thing is, the super form is going to be 2 copies, so it's going to be even more powerful. It's going to be fully expressed. And if the single copy has neurological issues, it's safe to say, majority of the time, the safe bet is the super form is going to be drastically worse. And then them not being produced or saying they're not being produced, and I haven't had enough time to breed them together, even though there's been like multiple years. I'm like, all right, that confirms that the super form, I'm sure it's wild looking, but it's probably really screwed up. It's probably might even have some structural facial characteristics, anatomical characteristics that are effective. It could be real spindly and extremely neurological, or it could be full on lethal. Those would be my bets, but I'm not going to breed skull face to skull face. I know he's shown some pairings, but he doesn't show any results. So,
yeah, I saw a couple. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, because that was like a side question. Because the initial question was like, what is polygenics? Which I talked a little bit about it last week, or like not even last week, Wednesday with Alvaro, and it's a really good question. It's a very interesting topic because mostly what we learned first is Mendelian genetics, which is like dominant and recessive. And actually, I didn't know this until more recently. I always thought incomplete dominance was categorized with Mendelian genetics, which it is. I thought Mendel was credit for discovering incomplete dominance. He actually didn't discover incomplete dominance. He only really thought there was dominant and essentially recessive. But for given the time when he was discovering all this stuff, it was like really revolutionary. And he was right on a lot of stuff, but he was wrong on certain things. But anyway, so Mendelian genetics, that's what we kind of learn right away. And it's kind of a clean cut and dry. A simple recessive is like, an animal's heterozygous, you get the visual, that's a homozygous. If you know Punnett squares, it's fairly, straightforward. It's at least statistically, searchable, and you can find that information out, and your exact percentages statistically. Same with dominant and complete dominance, really cut straightforward. It's like, it either is or it isn't. Either has a gene or it isn't. Now, polygenics is like, poly means many, and then genetics just referring to, genetics referring to alleles. We're filled with polygenic traits. Most of our DNA code is be considered poly traits, especially because, it encompasses, so many alleles. Like, let's say like eye color. There's a lot of alleles that contribute to eye color.
Yeah.
So eye color would be determined by polygenics, even though there is recessive blue eye. So that's the thing. It's like the color and pattern of a reptile. That's almost all. Well, it's all pretty much polygenics until there is a mutant. And so there could be like say ball pythons. They have a large population of mutants. But there's also a lot of alleles there that contribute to the pattern and color of a reptile. And it makes sense that reptiles are going to have a lot of alleles that contribute to pattern and color, because that is a necessary adaptation, evolutionary adaptation for their environment. So, reptiles can quickly, evolve and adapt into different environments. Like, so, if and it's going to vary between each species, but, a species like, might survive better if it's darker colored, or let's say even lighter colored. And so that can pass on very quickly within a few generations. And then over the course of like multiple generations, animals that are, say, lighter colored or darker colored will have a more, or, better survivability rate. But it's interesting too, because like hognose snakes, I wouldn't consider them one that's really that dependent on color to stay out of the eyes of predators. I could be overestimating that, but they're just so reclusive. And even in these studies where they radio chip them, they were like never getting eaten. These things are like nothing's really finding them that much as adults, it seems like. These things are like, oh, they radio chipped in and it's like still alive like 6-7 years later. So they do very well. And there's been, the original albino hognose was found as an adult. You can look at ball pythons, they find morphs as adults all the time, because color and pattern actually isn't, I don't think, insanely necessary for them to survive in their environment. Even though we're kind of like taught to believe like, oh, the reason albinos don't get passed on a lot is because, they're not going to survive well in in the wild. And that's partially true. Mm-hmm. I'd say mainly because, they're going to have some vulnerabilities, lacking melanin in their eyes. But the other thing is too, it's like a mutant that's popping up. It's like if the mutant pops up, it's only going to be a really small population, so it's really hard for it to expand. But a lot of albinos do well. There's a population of albino squirrels in Columbus, Ohio, and actually, coincidentally, in Columbus, Ohio too, it's in that area. There's albino Jefferson salamanders, and I've actually found albino Jefferson salamanders. I actually put on my stories like old photos in the late '90s. When I was a kid, I found them. I found 3 larvae.
Nice,
raised them up.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Nice rant. Color-wise, I noticed this year with my clutch this year with Autumn, the specific female I'm talking about right now is Autumn, and I noticed last year she produced some really cool eye-colored hoggies. Like I'm talking like maroon red, dark orange colors in the eyes, and more different than you would see. But I want to talk to you about hets. Now, we talked about this, I think, a few months ago about hets. Now, hets, like this year I produced with Autumn, she produced babies that were, especially the Arctics, were deeper, darker browns, like almost like a deep orange brown compared to last year's babies. And when I match them up, you can see they're just way darker. Now, since these were, at least this clutch this year, were 50% sable, axanthic, 100% albinos, and I produced albinos too as well, AA and AAAs. Now, when it comes to hets, do the coloring give you an indication that it's possibly, if it's a 50% het, that it could be holding that gene or no?
Well, yeah, yes and no. That's a very.
I know it's a question we talked about, and it's a good topic. That's why I want to bring it up tonight.
It's a topic I actually want to make a YouTube video.
It'd be great if you did. Yeah, I would love it.
Well, the thing is, a problem here. There's like so many aspects to it. It's a really fun one. I know I'm going to miss some stuff. I should make kind of like a bullet point. But the one thing is, I'm not trying to sound negative, but if I say, hey, this particular trait, it has these characteristics, but it doesn't mean it's going to be het. Somebody will be like, well, that doesn't mean it for this trait, this trait, this trait, this trait. So, like, they say that with piebald ball pythons. Now, I have never tried it out myself. It seems like it runs true from what I hear, but I've heard so many things over the years, ever since I was a little kid, like, hey, this works like this. And leopard geckos, hey, this works like this in corn snakes. Hey, this works like this in hognose. And a lot of times, it's not the case. Now, these ball python people might be right, but I don't think you're going to definitively pick out, pied ball pythons, and be like 100% accurate. Now, I'll give you a couple different examples. Then there's incomplete dominant traits that are extremely vague. And even geneticists actually, I'd have to reread it, but it's actually about the yellow belly ball python complex. And so that encompassed spark, yellow belly, and then the highway stuff. Might be a little wonky on that. I'm kind of rusty on ball pythons. But anyway, those are all like allelic, and they're all considered incomplete dominant. Now, yellow belly is very easy to discern from wild types. But then there's ones like, it's asphalt, which can make freeways and highways. Asphalt, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but asphalts and sparks are pretty vague, and it can be pretty, sometimes hard to tell apart. So these geneticists that broke information down and put it on Morph Market, I think it's RGI who did it. I'll have to read it. I read the original one, but they were referring to them more as like a simple recessive because they were so vague. And they're like, well, and their explanation was like, well, in the wild, and from people if they didn't know, they would just look like a variation that's very vague. You wouldn't even be able to tell. But these people got so good at discerning these characteristics. But that's an interesting thing. I think that's just the spectrum of what an incomplete dominant is. Like this one is like with a yellow belly, or let's say like a spark ball python, or even like a special ball python, like very, very vague. These heterozygous, these single copies, but then the super form is pretty drastic. But then you look at something like, I'll give you one that has and it's funny, I've heard two people mention two different types of like het markers. They're like, oh, this has a het marker, meaning like the heterozygous have a particular look or markers.
Yeah.
And then there's the meaning that most people I think are meaning is like, if this is a het marker, that means it's het. That means you can tell it's carrying the trait. Now, I made a bunch of past het Swiss chocolates. Especially in the anaconda, these het Swiss chocolates have a very unique and particular look. The one thing they get is like crazy checkerboarding on their stomach, almost like they have a normal belly. Huh. I have some anaconda het Swiss chocolate that have bellies like I've never seen before. Or I've seen stuff, I shouldn't say that because then people are going to point like, yeah, I've seen stuff pretty close, and I have seen it here and there, but this is consistent. And even when outcrossing, consistent. I'm getting these het Swiss chocolate anacondas with checkerboarding in their belly. Not all of them have it, but some of them like have these really weird, unique looks. Missing pattern in the back of the, more on the nape of the neck. So I kept back a bunch of 50% Pas het Swiss chocolates with these het markers. And I picked out all of my Pas het Swiss that had the most unique looks. And if you want to think, like, I think I'd be a pretty good example of somebody that's looking at them, because I've been breeding Swiss for the second longest, Jules being the first. I have a pretty good background in polygenics, and then looking for things like this. That's kind of how I picked up Arctic. I was looking for unique snakes that might be something possibly different. When I picked up the first Arctic, I thought it was just a very pretty color variant. I actually expected that to be polygenic. But anyway, and that got bred into my Lemon Ghost stuff. Different story. But anyway, I have all these Pas het Swiss chocolate. And this one male, really unique fucking look. I was like, this guy had the neck markings. He had the weird connecting neck markings. He had the missing pattern in the back of the neck. He had the checkerboarding belly. I marked him as a fucking hat. That's how sure I was. Guess what? He's not hat. Not hat. And I had another female, 56% Pas het. 2/3 chance, 66% Pas het. Wild. Connecting neck pattern, checkerboarded belly. looked like a fucking checkerboard. Looked like somebody could play chess on her belly. That's how checkered it was. And an anaconda, very extreme. This female's extreme. Even she had a stout body, a build like a Swiss. This female had everything. Bred her to a Swiss, 11 eggs, no Swiss. A few people are like, well, you got second list? I mean, yeah, I got like 10 more eggs. Like, well, maybe it'll be Swiss. I was like, I don't think so. Last time, no Swiss, none. I bred a Posset marker last year, 50% to an actual Swiss, 20 eggs, no Swiss. And so I got all these weird het markers, and it hasn't, I haven't even been good at picking them out, actually. Actually, the crazier ones I'm picking out are all mostly turning out. Now, one or a couple did turn out to be het, but most actually didn't. See, I've heard people say, oh, this one's got het markers, and it's a 66% Posset, it proves out. And most of the time, it's 2/3 chance. It's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I've had ones like that. Like, I remember I got 2 sables that were Posset albino, and they were really wild looking. They all proved out. Got a third one, proved out to be het. I'm like, all right, this weird look. And then I got a fourth one, real wild look, wasn't het. These characteristics, are passing on because they've got these similar genetics, and there's like a polygenic, like piggybacking. And that's the thing. You used to always call it piggybacking, but what it is kind of like a form of linkage. So these other alleles are following it around, and they're giving it this kind of unique look. And so then people think, hey, I can pick these out. And with this het Swiss stuff, no. Het albino stuff, no. Het leucistic stuff, I haven't tried. Here's the thing. You'd really want to take a large sample size of like 100 animals. You'd want to do more with like 50% and 60. See, that's the thing. It'd be a large, it'd be a very large experimental base of animals you need. You'd have to give me like 100 animals, and then I'd have to pick out, all right, out of the 50%ers, of these 100, I think these ones are het. Now, if you can get better than, let's say, like 55%, I'd say you have a pretty decent chance of saying, like, oh, there is a little bit of something to this. And that's the thing. I don't think you can put, like, most of these, doesn't look like at all you can pick them out with a strong accuracy if they are carrying it. But you might be able to do a little better. Let's say you pick out 50%ers that all have this weird marking. Maybe in the long run, they're right 60% of the time. Because these other alleles that are neighboring the gene that are being passed on, to these Possets that are kind of following it around, they do have some close relation to it. So there is definitely there's something to it, but the accuracy and what you can pick them out is
it's probably like 50-50. It could be, right? So I'm like,
pretty much. It's like I mean, with the Posset Swiss shit, man, I was like, shit. The 66ers, I had 2 of them that looked like wild, and they both turned out. And I had a bunch of 50s in there. Like, I did some 50-50s to each other that, like, it wasn't just 1 and 1. It was like 3 different males and like 3 different females. I was like, man, I picked, and here that means the ones that are probably more normal looking are probably the ones that are fucking het. And these are the ones that I didn't use those. I'm going to use them next year. A few of them, and we'll see. It's a good experiment, and it's a lot of fun. It's something I should have documented and put on YouTube. I could still document it because this is the post results. I have the babies hatching. But,
Yeah, I just figured like the hats wise, and like this year, like I said, like my babies are much darker than they normally would be out of the clutch last year compared to this year. But do you have my stream up or no? Because I was going to show you some pictures.
I should bring it. I was thinking about that, but I don't want to jump on my phone. I'm going to bring it up on my phone.
I was thinking about it, but we'll do it.
Just thinking about it, but then I was like, I can't see you. I'm looking at myself.
All right. Well, before I show you some pictures, in the meantime, because I want to show you a few pictures of these ones I made this year. But we do got a lot of questions here. I want to give a shout out to Shovel News Hogs. Jermaine's here. What's up, Jermaine? Billy from B&M Hogs. What's up? What's going on, dude? Harrison's Hognose is here. Backwood Hogs is here. A lot of hoggies. Hoggy breathers. But we got one it's going here. It's from Bluestone Exotics, LLC. When you have a polygenic trait like extreme red, what are the chances it will pass down to the offspring? Is it like recessive where both parents have to have it, or can one parent affect the outcome?
It's a very good question.
That's a good question, yeah.
Here's one way I've never really explained it before, but this is actually a decent explanation. Now part of it, the first part I've explained it like this like many times, but look at it as like you're switching on a bunch of alleles for a particular appearance characteristic. This example, or red tones. We don't know how many alleles we're affecting, but we're affecting a branch of them. And let's say along all these chromosomes and all these different loci where all this DNA code is, we have like 20 more alleles that help express red turned on more than your typical wild type. And now you take this one that has these 20 more turned on alleles, and you outcross it to something that has no red in it at all. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and they might get a little mix up of those alleles, will pass on to those offspring. So it's going to be diluted. It's kind of like taking Kool-Aid and then mixing it 50-50 with water. Unless you breed it to something else that has polygenics that are already kind of there that it can react with. So like another reddish hognose. Like a good example is like I took one of my best purple line extreme red, like one of my best like incorporated with my red phase. I don't even really mention my red phase. I just call them purple line extreme reds, even though they have a good amount of red phase stuff that I acquired from a wild caught locale stuff from Craig Trumbauer. I mentioned it here and there. But anyway, one of my best red phase I had albinos and bred it to a sable. And this sable was a pure locale Montana hognose. And in that locale, those things are like dark green, and they don't really have any reds. So the first offspring didn't come out that nice. They're like a deep mahogany color. They were nice, but it's like, damn. I was like, this red was powerful as hell, and it passed on, but not as strong as I'd like to have seen it. But the wild type alleles in the Montana locality stuff were just so, that locale is like evolved for like hundreds of thousands of years to be, probably dark and not have much red, tones up there at all in this northern locale. And they're like, these are like, even though they're genetically, of course, the same species, you're taking ones from like way up in Montana to a locale that's Southwest Texas and Nebraska mixed locale, and they're like, well over 1,000 miles north this locale. So they evolved quite differently. The morphology, while it's vague, is there, between the locales. So that's the thing. Like you call them outcrosses, and then these outcrosses, and that's why I keep percentages. You know what I mean? Because the percentages, while they may sometimes be 100% accurate, depending on who you're talking to, it's a guideline. And then the generations are just telling you how many generations you've been working on this and bringing it together. And you can also start like, hey, I started with these 250%ers, but I have this many generations in. So generations is important for just describing the longevity of the project and the steps you've been in it. And then the percentage is kind of the tracing the history of the amount of that lineage that's in that animal.
Nice. Beautifully said. We got a lot of questions here, but we'll get to them a little bit. I want to show you these pictures from this year, Jeff, from the babies that I produced. And it's just, I don't know, they're just incredibly darker to me. I don't know. Just that'd
be cool. I'm just looking at the live stream, man, on my phone. It's just like behind, so it's like me like using my hands and arms and waving. I'm just like,
it's okay. So this clutch was basically your AAA het sable to my what was it? She's Autumn is a Anaconda 100% snow, double head snow, possible head to Evans hypo. So as I look at these babies here, I'm like, they're just extremely dark. And this is after shed, after they had their first shed, and they're the same way still. Very dark. They're mostly Arctic, most of these. And it's just insane how dark they are compared to the clutch that she had last year with, my Arctic Anaconda. They're just incredibly gorgeous. Yeah, I used a different male. So that's what I was saying. Like, with the hets, like, would it produce possibly, like you already answered, of course, or answered, like, it might be a little bit darker. There might be something there.
The cool thing is you got a good example there of like how polygenics work. You have like a completely different unrelated male into that same female, and you're seeing a pretty big disparity in what her offspring looked like from that other male compared to mine. And so that's the thing. It's like there's so many alleles and reptiles that contribute to pattern and color. I don't know how many. There's a lot.
Look at this one. This one's really dark. Look at that Arctic. That face. That's insane.
See it. Oh, I see it now.
That one's extremely like the eye. Like this is macro. Like the eye even looks very like brown and orange. It's like pretty wild looking.
I'm looking at like piles of babies. Am I looking at the right ones?
Yeah, you are. You're a little bit behind, but this is the one I was talking about right here. He's like drops his phone. Oh my god.
I don't know, man. It's like doesn't want me to catch up for whatever reason.
Well, it's late. It's that one right there that you're watching, I think. Right there, yeah.
All right.
There you go. Now you're on live. There you go. Not that one. There you go. Nope, it's coming back right now. That one.
That one.
Yeah.
All right. I think you're hyperfixating on these little differences, but they are cool.
I don't know, dude. They're just wild looking to me, man. They're. I mean, like I could bring out the ones from last year, and they're just. Even the Arctics are incredibly light colored.
Okay.
It's just that's what I was asking about the heads and stuff like that. And we talked about the What do we talk about the how the boas and the pythons you get the testing done for their hets, and they don't have that currently for hognose, right? Or they're working on it. You said
they should. It should be like in about a year. It sounds like they should be out. They told me they're like, get your sheds ready. They're like, it's happening. And then once it's like out, then they need all the. Well, they're having people collect sheds now, and it sounded like about a year. I talked to them in was that July? Yeah, it's July. I talked to them, and so it's coming. It's coming.
I hope so. What would that do to the market, you think? Would that increase sales? Or, of course, it would increase sales, right? If you can guarantee 100%.
Well, I don't think it's going to increase. Well, for the thing is, people are going to buy hognose and hognose morphs. Regardless. I think you're asking, the question is, is it going to increase sales for certain projects? Yeah, if let's say you can, genetically test them. Then there's, I talked about it with Alvaro, and this is one thing I haven't seen. Nobody's pointed out. And that's one thing I thought about right away is a huge pro for this. There's one real massive pro. And nobody's talked about it. You can indefinitely outcross recessives now. See, everybody was like, recessives, you're always inbreeding at a certain point.
Yeah, true.
There is some, relatives, being bred back, of course. But, reptiles in the wild, especially, it depends on the species you're talking about. I don't want to make blanket statements. Because there's so many species.
Yeah, nobody likes blanket statements, Jeff. All right, so.
Usually not. It's important for this particular situation not to make them because there's so many different species of reptiles, and some are probably more genetically diverse. But I'm going to stick to the species that I know. Stuff like leopard geckos, hognose snakes. I know a little bit about Lamprepeltis, the milks and king snakes. But hognose snakes, they're inbreeding in the wild. What would happen in the wild? Some people would be like, I don't want pairings from that happened in the wild. Those inbred. It's not. Just because it technically is inbreeding doesn't mean it's a negative effect because it's a natural thing for the wild populations of hognose to do. It's just kind of hard to say and determine actively how much inbreeding it actually is, but it's pretty decent. I mean, there's these small isolated locales of only a few hundred hognose, and it's there is no new added genes. They're in this isolated population of 100 some hognose.
Yeah, there's going to be inbreeding, of course, in a locale,
Yeah, and the thing
depending on the radius, and how many in population.
Right, and they don't have the largest radius. Well, males do move around a lot more in the wild. Plains hognose. Males move around a lot more, and it makes sense genetically. That's how they're going to pass on a little more variation of DNA. And the males also search out females. So the males are the ones searching for females. So they're the ones more likely to kind of move around a lot more. And that's why even during herping and road cruising, it is definitely a little more likely to find a male plains hognose. So anyway, is these wild populations, there's inbreeding and stuff. So what happens in the captivity is a little bit of inbreeding isn't that big of a deal. It's kind of what I was getting at. I kind of went a little too off track there. Getting back to it, the big pro is outcrossing indefinitely. I could take let's say a gene is weak. Let's say het PPA is weak. Hypothetically. Kind of true, but not so much anymore. That PPA stuff seems to do pretty well now. I can take a het PPA, breed it to a wild locale, take the hets, get them DNA tested, take those het PPAs, breed them to some red face shit, take those, genetic test them, and just keep making hets and hets and hets to the point where these things are so outcrossed it's not even funny. And so that's a really cool aspect that's going to start to occur, and especially as people realize that. And, the other thing is, too, it's going to hurt market prices a bit on certain things. Most people are if money's a little tighter or people can save money, which that's the thing, in the hognose community and a lot of communities, I see the one thing is.
Well, I want to talk about this in a little bit, but go ahead.
Some people don't like spending as much. It makes sense. They want to spend as little as possible. And, so if you can get DNA tests on someone, if it's it's het, they might just buy one het, and then they just outcross it, and then here they don't really have to invest much into the project at all. But it is a longer route, and the cool thing, or the one other thing I was going to say cool, it's not really cool, it's just a neutral thing, it's just information. It does take a while to identify these new genes. So, Swiss chocolate, even if they had the DNA test now, it would be hard to identify because they're too closely related. There's too many common alleles, and so they need probably another 1 to 2 years to get them the genome
to narrow the gene, yeah.
Yeah, to get the genome sequence for Swiss and isolating the exact loci where that mutation occurs.
Awesome. Question here from Backwood Hogs. What are the key factors to consider when selectively breeding the polygenic traits in hognose snakes, and how can I assure consistency and quality in the offspring?
That's a good question.
Good question.
Now, it depends who you talk to. My approach is I look for polys like I would look for a mutation, essentially. I look for little quirks, and this is going to sound like very logical and, already, information that's already like known. It's not going to sound like it's not going to give you like a brain hernia. This is going to sound like very easy common sense, and it kind of is, but it also isn't, because the way I see people treat polys sometimes. Now, I look for what you want to, of course, look for. Everybody does. We look for little idiosyncrasies, or sometimes they're not even. Sometimes they're pretty blatant. Like, hey, this one is like, drastically different, and you want to take that characteristic and start to selectively line breed it and see if there's something there. Now, here's the thing. Not all polygenics are equal. Some are very inconsistent and hard. And basically, through test breeding and line breeding, you can tell you. That's why I say all this stuff. Everything will tell you. Hognose snakes themselves, they'll tell you everything if you pay enough attention and watch this stuff. If you watch their behavior in the wild, how they breed in the wild, what they do in captivity. If you're breeding them a lot, and like in captivity, and let's say that you're getting all slugs, they're telling you something's wrong. And you have to figure out what that is. If you are selectively line breeding a project, and after 3 or 4 generations it's still inconsistent, there's a very good chance that this poly trait is very hard to control and erratic. And certain ones, you're kind of just fighting against the current. So the one thing I never do is I don't fight against the current. Yeah. I look for stuff in characteristics where I would be like, this one's a river. This one's going to flow. This one's going to take me big time if I line breed it. Now, red phase, they're a big time river one, just because naturally you can find red hognose. So anytime you can naturally find a reptile that has a particular trait, it's like, all right, they're pretty strong in that. And if you can find ones that are a little better, well, now you can selectively line breed it.
Yeah, I found a beautiful years ago, like probably like 8 or 10 years ago, a beautiful red phase Eastern. It was just absolutely stunning, like bright red. It was like insane.
Yeah, Eastern Hognose is a species where you could do a lot of selective line breeding.
It's insane
because you got the yellow phase, you got gray
melanistic,
phase, you got
ones. Beautiful black
the
ones.
Melanistic, I'm pretty sure is recessive. Like the funny thing is, like I know a lot of course about Hognose. I know basics about Eastern Hognose. Like I'd never keep Eastern Hognose just because like you need a simple permit, which I don't even want to mess with it.
No.
But Eastern Hognose, like I figure I know I'd probably do pretty well with them. But my main focus would be not to feed them mice. That'd be the thing. I just
toads.
feed them an alternative diet strictly.
Fucking so many toads around here. You just feed them toads. Oh yeah, I got toads around. I got toads right out in the backyard here.
yeah. You want to do something. The Eastern Hognose, and like, there's everybody says you can feed them rodents, and it's like, even though I haven't kept them, I've heard like a bazillion stories. Like I've seen 3 albino Eastern Hognose since I've been alive that were caught and brought into captivity, and then they get put on mice, and then later it dies. There was a leucistic that had a bunch of black shattering on its back. I remember seeing it at Daytona. I heard he was like a fireman, that body. Paid $10,000 for it. He was feeding it rat tanks and stuff, and and it ended up dying. And I told somebody else, they're like, I'm going to get Eastern Hognose. I explained to them what I wouldn't do and why I probably wouldn't get those. They still got them. A year later, they told me I should have listened to. Now, I'm not saying don't get Eastern Hognose. I love Eastern Hognose, but I'm just a plains guy. I'm very plain.
Yeah, you are plain, Jeff. We got that right.
Yeah, my Western plains Hognose, they're just so high up there. Like, I love Easterns. I really like Southern Hognose. I like Mexican Hognose. But I'm not going to find anything, like, better. Even if Eastern Hognose, let's say there's, like, 100 new morphs came out, and it was, like, the best market. It's possible I might dabble in them a little bit, especially because I know I could do well with them with an alternative diet. But still, plains are still number one for me and always will be. But that'd be my thing with them is, like, I'd get them an alternative diet, and you could actually do a lot of selective line breeding with them. You could do so much with those things. It would be insane.
Are Mexican Hognoses crossing the border at the moment or no? I don't know.
Well, I mean, they probably are naturally in the wild all the time because there is a very large range of Mexican hognose that reside on the U.S. and Mexican border, and sometimes they're probably crossing it, but not much.
All right, that went over your head. Got another.
But the thing is, they're well. Was
I'm
that a
sorry.
political joke?
Yeah, it was.
Smart ass.
It was a political joke.
No. Yeah, that I didn't think about that.
Oh, guys, just a friendly joke. It was not me. All right, Harrison Hognose has a question here. I've heard that het sables have a reduced head pattern. Have you seen any truth to this?
Yeah, especially in the males, even the het leucistics, and I've seen like double het like toffee sables. I've seen double het toffee like axanthics. A lot of times hets like especially het lucies and certain het sables, yeah, the males end up having like a reduced head pattern. Now, the thing is, what you'd want to do is, like, I have a couple posset leucistic females. They're 50% posset. They have reduced head pattern. I kept them back. I'm going to breed them. But let's say those two prove out to be het. It doesn't really mean anything. I'd have to do, like, a lot of them. The best thing to do is, like, let's say, now that if the genetic testing comes out, let's say you take a het leucistic with missing head pattern, let's breed it to a normal, and we make, like, 20 babies. I'll pick out, like, let's say, how many I think are het in that clutch, send it to the RGI guys and see how accurate, I am. And I think it's going to, like, I don't think it's going to be I don't think you can pick out het lucies. I don't think you can. The female, sometimes it's a little bit on the head, around the prefrontal scales, and, there is some reduction, but it's mainly on the males, so that's definitely a hormonal thing. And so that's the thing, like, they're talking like Swiss chocolates, too. I mean, I'm getting off topic now, but we talk about the light phase and the dark phase one, or the females darker than the males. The males tend to be sometimes lighter or more pixelated. It's a hormonal thing. So that's what the difference. That's why the males look like that, females look like this. With the het lucies, the missing head pattern ones, especially the strong missing head patterns, mostly always males.
How was a Lucy produced? What produces a Lucy?
What produces it? I mean, it's a single gene mutation. So it was a mutant deal that popped up in a wild population in Colorado. Some guy collected them and then sold them illegally, and then Fish and Wildlife took them all back, pretended like it was a big deal when it really wasn't. They can lie to themselves and pretend it was. I don't want to lie, let's be honest. Anyway, they gave them to a zoo. The zoo kept them for a long time and then auctioned them off and sold them back to the reptile community that they initially took them away from, so it just ended up right back to where it was. And then really the only illegal thing he did was like cross state lines with them, and it was actually... Is there another fly in here?
A fly. You're worried about one fly?
Always like one fly in the summer that gets in.
God.
I mean,
is it the same fly every year, Jeff, or no?
Well, the mice attract them the most.
Of course they do.
Man, mice just, it smells like a piss farm out there.
You gotta clean that often, don't you? Jeez.
Yeah, it gets dumped outside. I'll tell you what, it makes insane fertilizer.
I was just ready to say, good fertilizer, right?
Yeah, my one friend comes over with his
and takes compost. Yeah.
What the fuck is that? It's like a skid steer, but it's a Kubota.
Okay.
Skid steer. And he gets his a scoop out in front of it, and he just kind of mulches it all in and spreads it all out, and then runs it over. And man, the weeds that grow up through that stuff is like insanely heavy and rich. It's so like they're so healthy looking. The weeds.
It's good. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, it's fertilized. It's good. It's nice. Enrichment. Travis Chipman. Nice name. I like that name. What morph produces the most iridescence?
Most iridescence. Well, iridescence is
Super Arctic has nice iridescence.
They do. It's the iridescence is caused by iridophores.
Correct. Yeah.
You say sables and like are up there, and then like super arctics. It kind of depends what The thing is, like, as hognose get older, they kind of have their scales are pretty thick, and they have like more of like a matte finish, and so they don't really appear iridescent. I mean, sables, especially on their face, you see some iridescence. So I'd say like sables, super arctics. The funny thing is, some people might not agree. It's like, hey, super arctics aren't that iridescent, but if the super arctic lucies, their face is really iridescent. It's not because of Lucy, it's because of the super arctic, but you can see more iridescence there because there's, maybe the pigment not getting in the way. Yeah, like sables and super arctics. I mean, Swiss have iridophore changes too, and I guess they're pretty iridescent too if you look at them. Yeah, but there's nothing like insanely iridescent. Not like an Azabachi or what they used to be called IMG boa. Those are insanely iridescent. But hognose don't naturally have those kind of like real shiny, slick scales that refract back a lot of light like that. I mean, they do, but it's more of like a matte kind of fit.
Yeah, I've noticed with my Super Arctics when I put them underneath a light, especially an LED light, I'm like, you can see it. There's definitely iridescent on their head only, not their body, but just their head scales. You can see.
Their heads have the most, yeah.
Yeah, you can see a little refraction or whatever. You can see it. You can see the light. It's pretty cool looking. Ethan Ray, Louisville Herps, good dude. How many parents should you do before you rule out pos hets? We have an adult female that has pos het albino and has previously bred to a visual albino, but she only produced 5 viable eggs.
Yeah, 5. That's not very many. Hold on 1 second. Oh fuck.
Oh, Jeff, what happened? Get that fly? You didn't get. You're trying to get that fly, aren't you?
I killed it.
I knew he was going for it. Did I say, chat? He's going for that. He's going for that fly. He's out getting that goddamn fly.
I got him.
Oh, that's amazing. But
all right.
Do you want me to ask it again or no?
Well, there's 5 eggs. Yeah. So you do another season for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. It depends who you talk to. Like sometimes people, I get it. I don't know if they're trying to be exhausting. Not saying anybody here is. This is like just reminds me of like leopard gecko people. Like you'd prove out like a pos het. I remember because there was like pure eclipse. People wanted pure eclipse, meaning like they wanted to eclipse leopard geckos without like Tremper albino or bell albino. And it popped up. It was basically integrated into Tremper. So anyway, a lot of people don't want to mix the albino, so they'd want these eclipse without Tremper albino. My dad and I, when we bred geckos together, we made some of the first completely, like eclipse that were completely pures. And anyway, that would it's a little bit of a competitive thing. So I think some people didn't like that, especially since we had the first ones and we bred them into Bell. So we made the first radars.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to say, hey, we have the Eclipse Bell albinos and these don't have Tremper in them. They're like, well, how did you prove out your Eclipse? They're like, well, we had these Eclipse that are pos het Tremper and we bred them to Trempers. And like, well, how many eggs did you get? And like, well, the one female laid we got like 12 babies. This other one, we had like 10 babies from it. Like, well, that's not enough. Like, you could have 20. It's like, well, yeah, of course you could always get that. You could breed a heterozygous to a homozygous and have 20 eggs, get none. Is it possible to get 50 eggs and get none? Yeah, but like the chances, once you're getting 1 in 4, out of 40 or 50 to a homozygous heterozygous, I think that's probably getting into like the 1 in a billion's chance, or maybe even higher. That'd be like flipping a quarter. And landing on heads like 40 or 50 times in a row. So,
yeah,
I have seen, 15 egg clutches and stuff where it's a heterozygous to a homozygous and they miss. It's definitely the one is a het, but it's very rare. It's like a 1 in 20,000 chance. Out of all those eggs, it's gonna something like that's gonna occur.
Awesome. Got a few more questions, Jeff. Let's take a little 3 or 4 minute break real quick. Get up, do what we gotta do. Guys, go grab a drink, go to the bathroom, do what we got to do, and we'll be back. I'm going to play some music. We'll be back in about 3 or 4 minutes. Stay tuned. Get those questions ready. I got a few more to ask you, Jeff, so let's get to this.
Right.
We'll
the one thing I'd say is after 12 or 15 eggs, I'd say it's safe. That's a good amount to say if it's het or not.
You're like me, dude. You're always overthinking. You're thinking. You're trying to get... Oh. All right, guys. We'll be right back. Oh, that's funny. That's awesome.
We'll be right back. It's got fucking woods on it. Where Crystal and I were hiking earlier today. Oh. All my legs are still...
Oh, yeah. Welcome back, everybody. Man, I was a DJ for 15 years. I was a DJ in the nightclubs. Industrial, goth, EBM, 80s, techno, rave stuff. It was a beautiful time in my life. And we're back with Jeff at JMG Reptile here. And if I can unmute him, we're good. There we go. I muted him because, we could hear him in the background during the break, so I muted him. Jeff, are you there, my friend?
Yes, I am.
How are you? Good. All right. Somebody just said in the chat, what'd they say? Oh, let me read this. It's a pretty good one. Jeff, you need a PC setup with a kick-ass rig and microphone so you can be on top of your live streaming. I think he sounds great tonight and looks good. I don't know. I'm like, you're using your PowerBook or something like that?
MacBook Pro.
Yeah, I don't use Mac. Mac sucks. Get a PC. Intel.
This is the only Apple thing I have. Everything else I have is like not an Apple.
Apple sucks when it comes to streaming. I don't know. It's just my experience. Just say. He said, damn. Jerry living his DJ days. I am, Ethan. Yes, I am. It's beautiful stuff. All right, questions, Q&A, guys. What do we got here? I got a few for you, Jeff. What are your top tips for breeding or beginners to breeding? We're going to talk about that too as well. Of how many people are breeding hognose in the last, let's say, 2-3 years currently. I know in Discord, I got like at least 3 or 4 first-time breeders this year, and I've been helping them out. The community on Discord's been helping them out, and it's been really good. But we talked about this the other day, actually, Jeff.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot more people getting involved in hognose. The community's grown a lot. So that equates to there's a lot more hognose breeders. It's still relatively small compared to let's say ball pythons, but yeah, it is growing. There's a lot more volume. There's definitely going to be more volume of hognose being produced. That's going to involve prices coming down, things being a little more competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So
prices are still holding pretty steady.
They're
I've noticed.
Extremely good. They're extremely good. Well, here's the one thing is there's always some pessimistic usually reaction to prices coming down. And it's a little understandable because, nobody wants to see these prices come down, but we all know it's going to happen. One thing is, a lot of people want a softer landing than what you're actually going to get. And I've seen it many times. People always complain about the prices or pointed out stuff dropping. I've seen people say, "Hey, this dropped this much. Look at how bad that happened. I'm glad I didn't invest in that." And I had that morph. And I did extremely well with it, and so did a lot of people.
Well, that's the thing, since you just touched on that, Jeff, is I was talking to Wes and a couple other people. They're saying, year by year, when it comes to popularity of a certain trait or morph, that will dictate the price because a lot more people might want albinos one year. And then next year, people are like, oh, look at these lavenders. I noticed lavender is very popular this year. And then sables. So people, I think it's year by year I've been noticing over the last 4 years. But what's your take on that? Popularity year by year. Is that a thing or no?
Well, I think the lavenders are always popular. Sometimes affordability. Lavenders are now, sometimes you find for $500.
Yeah.
So if somebody let's say if they looked at all lavenders and they see they're all $1,000 or and above, and they see albinos are $300, that could be a reason why they're hey, I'm looking for an albino. There are definitely trend changes. I don't think when it comes to single base mutations like albino lavender and sable, there's much of a change. Sable though, the funny thing I always find about sable is some people are like, I don't like sable because it's dark. I really don't like the way it looks. But those same people that don't like the way sable looks, they love sable combos. So that's the one thing you can say you don't like sables, but you're gonna like some of the sable combos unless you're out of your mind. So.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, they're beautiful. If you are, I don't think you answered this question. What the hell? Where the hell was that question? Programming to Riches says, what are your top tips for beginners to breeding?
Yes.
All right.
Top tip for beginners for breeding would be the biggest one is quarantine and getting healthy hognose. Easier said than done because there's a lot of emotion that's involved with people just randomly buying stuff. I'd say the hognose are getting better. If you would have asked me 4 or 5 years ago, and I told this a lot of people, it's I'd say like 4 or 5 years ago, 70 to 80% of hognose breeders had cryptosporidium, and there was a lot of people getting breakouts and stuff. Now that people are gloving up a lot more, doing quarantining, taking it very seriously, and people doing a really good job of that.
And reputable dealers too that are
there's a lot more reputable people, and that's the thing too. It's like anybody
reading feedback and all that stuff too.
Yeah, let's say somebody got like cryptosis in their collection. It's like obviously this wasn't like a conscious decision to
correct.
Do it. It was an accident. The people that take the good approach is like, hey, they either acknowledge it or first you have to acknowledge it. You don't necessarily have to publicly acknowledge it. Some people did, and I really
I think bringing the good with the bad, like I do on my channel. Like I made a big mistake this year, and I think letting people know the bad is good as well. Yes. People will learn from that, and you're trying to tell people, hey, listen, I effed up this year. Should never did that. Like with my everybody knows with my incubator, I fucked up and lost some babies. But
showed me those little like fucking like.
I was pissed. I was pissed. It was my fuck up.
Food heater like things. That's things for like heating up your grilled cheese. But they converted those into incubators. But initially they were like designed for grilled cheese sandwiches.
Well, I got a Wilbank, so I'm good now. So.
Good, yeah. Wilbank stuff looks good. People ask me all the time about Wilbank stuff. I'm like, well, the guy's got a big business.
It got a big sale right now going on, and I grabbed one.
He's making the incubators, and he's putting his name behind it, and they're homeostatic. Like I'm sure they're great. Incubators aren't like insanely complex. It's not like they're buying like a nuclear device and a bunch of
right.
It's got a heating and a cooling element, and it's got a probe and a regulator. But so anyway, I'm sure they're like great. I'd imagine if I wanted to buy like a higher end incubator, I'd look at his probably. So anyway, top tips: you get a good incubator. Good rack systems. The thing is, you can even start with a cheap rack system, then upgrade later. Nobody really starts out doing everything perfectly, and then you learn as you go along. Quarantine healthy animals, get them from good reliable sources. That can be tough. Like I'd say, here's the thing: it's hard to learn all this stuff right away. So
it is.
I talk to so many hognose people that are like, hey, I met you and this other person. I'm very glad I met you, but it took me like a year to find you. Like before then, I was having all these issues. I just talk to people on Facebook. I get all this conflicting information. There'd be arguments. It was very tough. And then when they find let's say a community or they find a YouTube channel that's really helpful and has a lot of good tips, and it's it's a lot, and then it goes a little more smoother. And if you have somebody that has been doing this for a very long time and can give really good advice, you can ask them. Like a lot of times people ask me, it's very simple. I can tell you how to avoid cryptosis and all that. So really, it's about avoiding cryptosis, getting from health, getting from reliable sources, not buying from too many people.
Yes, that's my big thing too. Is not buying from too many people. I primarily buy from you and Red Ridge. I brought from. That's the only two people I brought from.
Yeah, Wes is really good, and I know there's actually a friend of Wes's that's really good, and they actually have a really small collection. They only have a few animals, and they asked if they could bring a snake over to Wes's brewmate in his brewmation room. And he's like, and he wouldn't even be here. So he goes, well, I can't do that just for my quarantine and everything. It's like, oh, that's really good.
Yeah, he's very strict on it. Yeah,
that's what you have to be.
You have to be.
As soon as you start making exceptions, that's when the problems can occur. So you got to be careful.
I had somebody last year say to me, one of my followers on Discord and also Instagram, I said to them, well, they asked me oh, can I send you my baby and we can mate it with your female? I'm like, nah, bro, I can't do that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I try to do it in the nicest way. Say no. I'm just like, nah, I don't want to introduce anything that I'm not well aware of.
What's the nicest way to say no in New Jersey? Go fuck yourself. Is that the nicest way to say no in New Jersey?
Get the fuck out of here. Nah, just kidding. But no, I was polite and I just no, maybe I don't think so. It's just dude, I just can't do that. I'm like, my room is just the room for the hognoses. I got one room just for the hognoses and that's it. And keep them there and they're all healthy. Every single one's healthy. I got that one with the kink that I found. That the kink. You remember when I was telling you about the kink?
That happened.
She didn't. She was super content too. I figured I'd see it right away. But as I'm feeding her, and she's grown really big now, I noticed the kink was more pronounced now. I'm like, ooh. And you're like, yeah, sometimes you don't see it. And as they get older, you said, they come more pronounced with the kink. But I'll probably sell that as a pet, like you said. It's probably better to sell them as a pet, which I'll probably put that on Morph Market soon. But She's great eater, very active, and just has a kink like 2/3 way down, and just she'd be a great pet. She's cool. She's cool. You could hold her. She's docile. She's awesome. But
Exactly. That's what you
it's
can
female.
find somebody that's looking for a lower end hoggos or a little more affordable one and find a good home for. I actually just posted like one like that on Morph Market. Big Arctic albino female, and she's actually huge. And she's like 2 years old. Actually, she's big for a 2-year-old. But we fed her really well and gave her a lot of. It's funny. Her back was so extreme as a baby. I wish I should have taken pictures of it. Because that would be a good. See, that's the fucked up thing, man. I have some pretty good information.
What? What's up?
And the thing is, like, I've witnessed this so many times. If you have one with like a big beveled kink,
if
you supplement them heavily with calcium,
and
as they mature,
I give her calcium every time.
They improve.
Okay, because I give her calcium supplement every.
Yeah, this Arctic albino. If you look, she's got a pretty big divot in her back, but it was so extreme as a baby. It sometimes looked like her ribs were pushing out, and she looked like completely bowed, and she'd crawl funny. Most people would throw her in the freezer, but I'm like, well, she's doing well. Now she is like really good, and her spine actually corrected. So some can actually get better. The best ones seem to improve, and then some, like if they're really kinky, those ones generally get worse. Or the roller coaster kinks, those ones generally get worse.
And it's just this one kink, 2/3 way down, just kink, and looks you can notice it. It's noticeable. Put it that way. As she crawls, it's noticeable. Sometimes when you hold her, you don't see it, but when you straighten her out, you can see the kink. But definitely not going to breed her. I'll sell it to somebody that wants her as a pet. So that's what I'm going to do. But,
nice.
We were talking about the market. Where do you think the market's going right now? I was talking to you the other day. I was like, usually this time last year, I was selling like 1-2 a week, and like now, actually, I sold 2 this weekend. It's pretty funny after we talked about this. So after we talked about this, I sold 2 over the weekend. I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm selling. I was like, that's awesome, perfect. And
you what happens. I've seen people panic and then
weird.
Sell their stuff really cheap, and then like after it's done sold after a few months, people are looking for those animals and the yearlings and willing to pay double than what they sold them for. So I've seen that happen like more times, and I've done it myself. So Yeah,
I throw discounts here and there once every few weeks, 2 weeks, and this one sold. Well, I gave her a nice discount. This female that brought this AAA female off me yesterday. It's a beautiful baby, actually, man. I was going to hold it back, but I'm like, I got too many of them. I got too many AAAs, AAs this year. It's like I produced 16 albinos out of that clutch, one clutch. 16 albinos out of one clutch, and I think 12 of them were Arctic, AA or AAA. It was insane, odds there.
They're nice.
Yeah, it was really good odds this year from that female. And this female always produces like 30, 40 years. In the last 2 years, she produced like 90 eggs, I think. It's insane, fertile eggs.
That's good. Yeah, some of these females and as they get older, more veteran. Some of these veteran females actually handle breeding better.
Oh, she has it great. She pops them out right away. There's no delay, no nothing. Just pops them out.
Yeah, no struggling.
Yeah, no struggling. Within like 3-4 hours, they're all out. I'm like, she pops them out like every 10 minutes. It's just insane. The last 2 years, double clutch. She double clutched both times in the last 2 years, and she's just an amazing friggin' female breeder. If you are looking for a pet-only hog, would you suggest a male or female? Either or, right?
It really depends. If you want one that stays
bigger,
smaller,
go to a male for what's going on.
Like male, if you want one that gets bigger and stuff, female. I'd say males are, a little less likely to have like issues. Females, if they have a higher metabolic rate, and if the person keeps slamming them with food, females are more prone to obesity. Not saying that males can't be, but I have a lot of males, they self-govern themselves. Like, I have a lot of males, like, I couldn't get these things oversized and obese if I wanted to, because they stop eating. Females, though, a lot of them, especially if you have the right, like, higher temps and stuff, or let's say not right temps, but higher temps, you keep feeding them, it just keeps their metabolic rate high, and then as soon as they get that burn off, or they're not, they don't have anything in their system, and they're hungry again, you can keep feeding them and give them this really high elevated, really consistent metabolic, rate that's way too high. They're getting too much food intake, and they end up getting oversized and obese. So they're more prone to having issues with their liver and just their overall health. They could possibly produce, eggs. They're going to be infertile because, you don't have a male because it's just a pet in this scenario. And so, like, if they produce slugs, though. Slugs are pretty easy on them, so it's really unlikely to have a problem. Females are also little, they can get enlarged musk glands. So there's like things that can happen with females that you can't really get with males. Now, the thing with males, they are a little more prone to go off feed, of course.
Yes.
And then that drives people nuts because people anthropomorphize a lot. They're like, I want my hognose to eat every week. So that doesn't feed for them every week.
Bro, that's like, every week of my Discord. Every week of my Discord.
Emotional expectations onto the animal.
Yes, correct.
So then I have to explain to people why, that's not, what you should be doing. And that's good and all. But that's the thing. Like I would say, male. I pretty much suggest to everybody males. Males, they're not going to have to mess with any enlarged musk glands. They're not as rambunctious feeders, so you probably won't get chewed on them as much. You're not going to have that problem with a lot of males. Versus females are more prone to mistaking you for food because they have that more intense feeding response. In general, compared to males. So, like, I always suggest males. I really do. I know I see people, like, say females. I don't know what, like, it's like, especially, like, it's like, what if it gets enlarged musk glands? It's like, you don't want somebody having to mess with that.
It's less worry and less maintenance. Yeah.
I see people with these big, giant, like, overfed, like, pet female hognose, and, that's not good, either. People do it with their cats and dogs, though. It's funny. The reptile community, you post an obese animal. It depends on the leprechaun community. The communities are all different. I can just go on, but the fucking, some people get really upset. Hey, your snake or is way overfed. Meanwhile, people have these overfed cats and dogs that nobody really usually says much. And then most people don't even feed themselves right. But it's kind of hard.
Or they feed themselves too often. Oh, sorry. We got Angry Hogs here. Angry Hogs just stopped in. He's from Spain. You probably know him, Jeff. He said hi. He said hello from Spain. Good night, or good night, guys. Just want to stop by. He's probably it's probably like 2:00 in the morning for him. 1:00. So welcome. Thanks for stopping by, Angry Hogs. We got a good one here. Joe and Jeff. What are your personal favorite underrated morphs? Would like to hear both your answers. Underrated morphs. I don't know. I would say right now for me would be albino, maybe. Underrated. How about you, Jeff?
Well, albino is really common, but yeah, it kind of gets
common.
It gets snubbed a little bit because it is common. But the funny thing is, a lot of albino and albino combos are the most popular.
Yes. Look at
those are insanely popular.
Yeah.
Sunburst, my bright crazy orange.
Sunburst is crazy. Popular. Yeah.
Yeah, my red albinos and red superconda albinos sell like crazy. People always want those. So you can say albino, albino.
I was just saying albino normal, no like traits or morphs, just like albino in general.
Sure.
Because people grab like a normal before they would grab an albino, I think, because I don't know, that's what I've noticed at least.
Gotcha. Yeah, underrated, like the all face would actually be my most underrated if it wasn't for their neurological issues. That kind of like makes it a little funky. If they didn't have neurological issues, by far skull face. Everybody's like, doesn't look that great, and you can't really. It's just busy. It does a lot, and it's very, very cool. But we're just gonna like null skull face because of neurological issues. I'd say an underrated one, probably caramel.
Yeah, you might be right on that caramel. Yeah, I see them on Morph Market, but
yeah,
I don't see anybody ranting or raving about caramels.
Well, some people do, but the thing is, they always like frosted is kind of like agreed upon, like not like out loud, but a lot of people like frosted or go for frosted over caramel, and frosted is that part of that caramel complex. And but yeah, I'd say caramel is definitely underrated.
Caramel, and then somebody asked earlier, what's your favorite morph to keep? Mine's going to be, of course, what Jeff created was Arctics. I love Arctics with everything. Yeah, like double A, triple A's. I'm like my albinos this year just look gorgeous. I'm like when they're Arctic, they have like they're lighter colored. At least the ones I produced this year, they're very pink in the background. I've noticed, at least with the clutch I produced this year. I'm like, they just look so freaking beautiful, man. When you have the Arctic with the albino, it's just gorgeous. It looks so freaking beautiful. It's just amazing. Yeah, nice. Your favorite, Jeff?
My favorite combo now?
No, your favorite morph or trait.
Oh, I said super Arctic. Like, yeah, Arctic, super Arctic.
Super Arctics are pretty dope.
Yeah. If I'm going to say just like one like single gene, it's got to be like super Arctic / Arctic, just because of the versatility. Like you could make like 100 super Arctics, and there is going to be some variation among those, and they're going to be pretty cool. But yeah, if I had to pick like one mutant,
and the super Arctics vary with their head stamps. It's like so cool with their head stamps. What they do with their head stamps, it's like really cool looking. Are there any morphs that are harder to keep than others? I guess maybe food-wise, feeding-wise, caring-wise, maybe. I don't know what they mean by that.
Skull face, because some are neurological. I mean, but it's not like it does anything. Like, some of them just tilt their heads. They don't need any special mate. I say anything with like a defect where you have to help them shed or eat or anything like that. But there isn't any mutation. Like, of course, like albinos are going to be more light sensitive, and if you're using UV on them, there is definitely a topic to be brought up there that it's going to affect your eyesight, but not in like a way like you could have UV on an albino, and they do just. You can't even tell that it's affecting. I'm sure it has to be because they don't have as much melanin protection in their eyes. But yeah, there isn't any mutation that requires any special care.
It's special treatment, yeah.
Yeah, like they're thinking like a silky bearded dragon where you have to put udder cream on them. That was a big suggestion. Like you made the leatherbacks and you made the silkies, which are the homozygous form. They're essentially a scaleless, bearded dragon. They don't have the scaled tubercles, the scale formations. But they get chapped skin. So you'd want to they said udder cream. So everybody get udder cream and you slather up your bearded dragon. Nice silky bearded dragon like every other day or whatever. Scaleless ball pythons have a big problem with face rubs, and they're tough. So they're one where you want to bust out the udder cream for your ball python. Mm-hmm. You want to get tubes of that out. But those animals, if they need that, you shouldn't even really be producing them. I mean, that's one that's they're cool. I get it. But at the same time,
there's care involved. A lot of care involved.
Stop making them.
Yeah. Poison Cow. I've been watching Hognose videos on YouTube for about 3 years now. Joe was one of your hogs that sent me over the edge, and now I can't stop thinking about getting one. Well, hit me up. If you want to get one, let me know. We'll talk.
You can stop the thoughts. The thoughts, they're eating you up about getting a hognose for 3 years once you have one. But once you have one, you'll probably want to get a few more.
Oh, my God. That's the thing with me, man. When I first started 4 years ago, I just start buying them. It's just and then I got into the breeding, and I've been collecting reptiles my whole life since I was 13, 14 years old, herping. We talked about this, ringneck snakes and garters I had. Yeah. And my mother didn't mind me having them. She didn't like them, but she didn't mind me having them. And back then you used aquariums and you used to put boards on top with fucking rocks to hold them down so they couldn't get out. And all kinds. It put drill holes in the wood. But that's how we kept them back then. We had no terrariums back in the day, Jeff. No terrariums back in the day. Aquariums only.
Aquariums with
aquariums.
Lids.
Yeah, with the lids.
I kept a lot of my milk snake was an aquarium with a metal screen lid with rocks on it. That's how my corn.
Yeah, we used to use the rocks on top. Yep.
Yeah, it was terrible, but
That's
actually
funny.
The first, the palmetto corn snake.
Oh yeah.
The mutation palmetto. Mm-hmm. I seen the very first one.
No way.
Right around. Oh yeah, he had it at the South Carolina, the Columbia Reptile Show. My dad offered him $20,000 for it, and the guy wouldn't sell it to my dad. He ended up selling it a year later to Don Soderbergh for $16,000. But the funny thing was, I told my dad, it was his investment; it had nothing to do with me. And I told him I wouldn't buy that because that's $20,000. You're nuts. My dad's like, if that is genetic, he goes, that's going to be amazing. And the guy wouldn't sell it to him. But my dad, anyway, the guy had it in a glass aquarium with a rusty screen lid on it and two bricks on each end. That's how he was displaying it. And it was a 3 foot long palmetto corn snake. That was and it was the only one at that time. It was a wild caught one.
That's funny. Back in the day, we don't have the stuff we have nowadays to care.
That guy had then they had
the good old days.
The way the guy had this wasn't that wasn't insanely long ago. I mean, there was freedom breeder racks around then. There was Neodesha and of course Vision front opening contain enclosures, and there was more. But yeah, that was
it's got a 30-gallon aquarium, 100-gallon aquarium, 125 gallon. Just put them right in there. You're good. Yeah, the good old days, right? That's right. You remember the heat rocks back in the day? They were so freaking hot you couldn't even put them in there for snakes.
Yeah. They're like
They had to, and they were actually rocks that heated up, and they were like there was no thermostat on them. It was just like heat up like 140, 150.
The heating element was in that.
Yeah, you couldn't regulate them back in the day. It's like what the hell?
They were like I'd get them for like $1 and $2 each at Reptile shows. There'd always be somebody that was like getting out of it, and they had all these heat rocks and piles, small ones and big ones, and they were like $1 to like $5 each. And my first hognose male, the first 3-4 years I kept him, he had a heat rock. That's how he stayed warm.
It's just the heat rocks got so freaking hot. It's like Jesus Christ. It was funny.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Oh my God. We got a couple more questions. We got here. Arctic all day, every day. Yeah, same with me, Jamie. I like the Arctics. Arctics are so cool. Especially with the albinos I produced this year. They're so freaking cute, man. I'm like the albino Arctics are just absolutely cute. So hard to pick a favorite morph combo. How many more? Storm clouds. Yeah, I'm trying to produce storm clouds next year. That's my thing for next year. I would like to produce some storm clouds. What do you think about the storm cloud, Jeff? Beautiful. Good. They're beautiful, aren't they?
Good.
They're incredible looking. See, we have any more questions? If you had to trade a morph from ball pythons, other popular species, with one from a hog, which one would you choose? Pieball? Right away, you know, he's like, yeah, pieball. All right. Any more questions, guys? If not, we're going to get out of here. It's been an hour and 18 minutes. We good? We good. Jeff, you got to get out of here. I know you're busy as all hell. But thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it, man. Great conversation, man. People loved it in the chat, man. We hit over 120 people in the room, or actually 94 through the room all night. We have 24 right now, 27 right now watching. Thank you very much, man. Great time. And I'll be in touch with you. I got to grab some 1 year or at least 2 year females off you soon. So we talked about that breeding for next year. I want to grab a couple. I want to grab a couple off you because I want to get up to 7 next year. Because I've been breeding 3 for the last 2 years. I want to get up to 7 this year. And of course, I got a shitload of females growing right now for 2026. So that's gonna be great. Have a great night, guys. Everybody, Poison, thank you very much. Hit that like button on your way out. Appreciate it. Share the stream. And we'll talk to you soon. Jeff, thank you very much, my friend.
I'd say Paragon. If I couldn't, he said to choose other than Pied. I'd probably say Clown, maybe.
He said, tell him not Pied Ball.
Not Pied. I'd say probably Clown.
Oh my
I have to think a bit, but I think Clown.
Appreciate the opportunity to pick your brains. Bluestone Exotic says, thanks, guys. Show this man some love. I saw no hogs. Somebody go live. Yeah, we shoot some hogs. But love you guys. Be good. We'll see you in the next video. Jeff, thank you very much. Guys, we're out.